finishing up my 12th year as a city councilor, so, you know, gosh, sometimes all the years kind of run into each other, but looking back, there's a couple things when I started that I'm really proud of too, is the La Cueva sector plan. That was in 1999 when I first started, and that far northeast heights off Paseo del Norte, there was really nothing there. And so the sector plan, it was really neat because there was nothing there, it was a committee that was formed to basically do zoning, do residential, do how many houses per acre. And so now 12 years later, you can see the fruits of your labor because it's a beautiful area up there.
Is that like the area where like the Trader Joe's and everything?
Yes, Trader Joe's, Wyoming and Paseo, where the Smiths is, down to Louisiana, and so all that was just vacant. So that's kind of neat after all these years, seeing how that has grown, and you know, you hope it grows in a good fashion, and it has. And it's a great place up there. So that was one thing I've done. Another thing I think I did that I'm really proud of too, and it's being an educator more than anything, is the party patrol that we had years and years ago, and it's been years now, but I remember I was an assistant principal at La Cueva, and I had a neighbor that said, you need to come over here, there's a party and it is out of control. So I did drive over there, and it was an underage party, and it was unbelievable. I don't know if you were there.
No, I wasn't.
I'm kidding. But anyway, and it was like, there wasn't enough police officers, so what they did, they finally came and they broke the party up. So the kids, a lot of the kids that were drunk just got in their cars and looked and drove to the next party. And so what we did is I helped in starting this party patrol. That what we did is we got grants and took off-duty officers to just respond to party calls. And basically what we would do is the officers would get there and they would see who was drinking. I agree that Paseo is the #1 issue. But when the committee looked at Paseo, they basically said, you know, this is money that we want to get out in the community to get jobs and stuff happening right now. If you put this money into Paseo, it could be 4 or 5 years before it's ever used, and so it wasn't the intent of what the mayor wanted. And so, and yet I thought, you know, we're not responsible for the Paseo interchange. That's the state and that's federal. But you know, so what if we put a little seed money in there that maybe the state will look and say, well, we're serious about that, and so they'll put money in, the feds will too. So that's how the split came. And the reason we picked that, I supported the $25 million for the sports park, is because if y'all have ever been, this is going to be a soccer field, softball field, basketball. And so what we're trying to do, if you've ever in the summer, when young, if you were a soccer player, you went to Phoenix, and it was big money hosting these big tournaments. That was kind of what the mayor wanted to do, because the impact, you have a soccer tournament, say at this complex, you bring in 100 teams with families, it's going to make an impact as far as gross receipts. And so that's the whole intent there. And it will. And so that's how I came with that. Now, I know that my opponent's hammering me on the $50 million, it should have been, but the intent that if the state doesn't put any money in, the $50 million is not going to get anything done. It's going to be 4 or 5 years before you could hopefully match it. But I know that what the state's going to do now is they're going to look at, since we did put some money in, they have about $250 million in their money for this next legislative session that they want to do projects in the state that are statewide projects that benefit the state. Well, Paseo's on their short list. And so there's a good possibility that they're going to put enough money to do phase 1, which is the overpass. You know, and that's going to take care of a majority of our issues with Paseo. So Wyoming, when you're coming out from on the west side, you know how you get Jefferson and then you stop and it takes forever. This is going to be a flyover there and a flyover back. It's $70 million, and it's going to be able to handle that. So there's a good chance that it's going to happen, and that they're going to put the rest of the money in. You know, and we do have a role, and I know you saw at that last meeting about the veto, and you know, bringing in the DOJ, you all understand what, I don't know if you understand what that means, but Department of Justice comes in and they don't do anything quickly. You know, we could have results when they come in 3 years. You know, you can't wait 3 years. And so I know that this administration, what they've done is that, you know, the perf report's controversial, but at least what they're doing is they're already making changes. And I think that those are good changes. There's issues. And you know, one of the big issues was, I don't know if you remember years ago in Warren Chavis when we had 900 officers and they were trying to push to 1,100 officers. Well, they lowered the requirements to be a police officer. And I don't think you can do that. And so, and I think the police, you know, you have, like in my neighborhood, I have a police officer there. He's a family man. He's got 3 kids. He works, he comes home. He's a family guy. You know, that's his job. Police is his job, but he's a family man. And I think sometimes we forget about that. But we need to make sure that this department is doing what they need to do as far as training, as far as non-lethal choices. And I think they're starting to do that. You know, I don't think anybody cares about the DOJ coming in, and you know what, they don't need our invitation. You know, they're going to come in no matter if we care they come in or not. They don't, and it's that. And I don't think it's a bad idea for them to come in, but we can't wait 3 years for a report. And so the chief and what they're doing now is they've got to start making changes, and I think they are. You know, the chief, the mayor stands by him. I had an issue when you had Darren White and the chief, because who was really in charge, you know, and everybody knows he's the guy and he's in charge, and he better make some changes done, and I think he is, and I think, you know, we'll be able to see some of those. I think you've already seen some in some of the news media clippings about some shootings that we have and how they respond, and we've just got to make sure that, you know, we've got great police officers, just like any other business. So you have some employees that aren't, and you just got to make sure that everybody knows what the rules are. And then if they don't work out, then you let them go find another job.
So if it didn't matter that much whether or not you guys overrode the veto, I mean, that's kind of the sense I'm getting from you, is like, whether the veto stood or didn't stand, the DOJ is going to do what it's going to do. So then why not vote to override the veto to please the people who come to the meeting and requested that you guys, you know,
yeah, and I understand that.
Invitation.
And a lot of it got very political. You know, you have a group of folks there, and you know, it just didn't. You're right. It didn't really matter, and it got political. Let me tell you what I have trouble about this bill, and this was at the last meeting. The original resolution, if you look at it, it said to bring an independent person to come in and look at procedures and things. That was the bill. Okay, at the meeting, one of the counselors put an amendment in that basically said, because of civil rights violations, we want the DOJ to come in, and that was an amendment to the bill. And the issue that I have is, you know, if he wanted a bill like that, he should have introduced a bill so everybody would have known what this bill is. Because, you know, we're under strict rules to, you know, make sure that everything's published. It has so much time to be published. It's transparent. Well, this bill wasn't transparent, and you cannot change the intent of a bill with an amendment. And so I really did bring that up at that meeting and got a little angry about it, because it's just not transparent. It's not good government to do that. You know, I'm not saying the bill's good or it's bad, but you just don't take one bill. I guess the legislatures, they call it log roll on that. But you can't do that. And so, and I did. I asked both of the attorneys, are we going to have some issues about transparency and making sure that this was, I can't remember the word, but making sure that it was out there in time for people to see it. And they both said yes. And I just said, you know, Counselor, I don't have anything against the bill. We can defer this, and then you can bring a bill to do what you want. But they didn't do that, and I had a really big issue with that. And then it got very political after that. I really like the counselors. I work Debbie O'Malley. I really like Debbie. She's great, and Debbie's somebody, you know, we don't always agree because we're kind of different, but, you know, Debbie and I can talk. And yeah, and you know, it's nothing that hasn't been done before. Whenever you have an election coming up, you're always going to have this. You have a couple folks that are going to run for election. I'm not talking city council, different jobs, like one of the city council is probably going to run for mayor, you have another one running for the U.S. House. Anytime you have that, you have this. It's happened all the 12 years that I've been in any kind of election. And it's just, you know, it's not right, it's not wrong, it just is. But I do, I think I've been this fabulous Debbie. I work with Garduno. You know, and as far as partisans, sometimes I agree more, you know, I can agree with Debbie in some things and maybe another Republican not, you know, so, you know, you do have a little partisan, but, you know, it's interesting, it usually works itself out. You know, and that's a really good question, and after 12 years and I'm getting older, and I guess the two mayors I have, I worked with Jim Baca and Mayor Chavez, and so, and the mayor and I used to really clash a lot because we just didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things, you know, trying to work together, and I think Mayor
With Chavez or Baca?
With both,
Both.
but Chavez, with Baca, he was only there for 2 years, and then I think the rest 8 years I had with Mayor Chavez, and then, you know, RJ, he's got a different style, different demeanor, very low key. He sees himself as a manager, and it's different. You know, it's not this, you go to lunch, you know, he's just there. When it was the other mayor, you go to lunch and you have 3 people making sure his bodyguards. It used to bother me when those officers could be on the street. But he's just a good guy, and he's really just, he's a lot easier to work with. I think one of the things that I hang on was the multi-generational center up in my district. Up in District 4, we don't have any senior centers. We don't have any community centers, anything. And so we really worked hard with this new multi-generational center, and that's right off Wyoming and Paseo area that serves whole District 4. And it's very nice. There's still a couple more phases to come, and so I kind of wanted to stay around 4 more years just to make sure that gets done and gets taken care of, because it is a nice place for the residents in District 4. Mike Benton is a great guy, and he's got some great ideas, and I know that when we look at that his bill, you know, you got to look at the cost-benefit analysis, and that's what we do. When you look at the cost of what it will take, I mean, we all want energy conservation bills, and it works, and that's where we push, but there's a point is when the cost benefit to move that energy conservation this much forward, it's not worth it to the small business people. And you can look at some of the issues that we've got, you know, putting sprinklers in small business buildings, what it was going to cost them, and look at the safety issues, and did we really need to do that? And at one of the council meetings, we're down there, and these small businesses, I'm going out of business. You make me put those sprinklers in, and I'm going out of business. Well, then the whole point is, what can we do to make it safe, that it's still safe, but it helps those small businesses? And so when you look at this energy conservation, when our rules are so stringent, even past what nationally is and what some of the state rules are, to spend this much money to move this far forward in conservation and you don't get the gains, then in my perception, it's not worth it. So it's a fine balance. You want that conservation that you're going to save money, save the environment, but if you move in a few degrees and the cost is extreme, it's going to affect the small business owner, and it's not going to be cost efficient for them.
Is there any concern that it will have a negative impact on the environment?
You know what? I don't think so, and I think that there's been a lot of discussion, and there's going to be a lot more discussion, and there might even be some amendments that you just want to find a fine line, where you're going to have that benefit, but it's money. If you get that, in some cases, it's like if you look on home. So if you're going to buy a new home and you're a first-time home buyer, all these conservation's going to push up the price of that new home $20,000. It could possibly keep you out of a new home. Okay, well, what if we still get that energy conservation really well, and maybe we don't go those extra few degrees, whatever, and we're going to add $5,000 to a new home? Is that better for the community because we can put more people in homes? So, it's a perception, and it's a fine